The red dust of Mars swirled through the streets of New Air's colony, coating everything in a fine crimson powder that never seemed to settle. Through the haze of another dust storm, a lone figure trudged toward the colony's main gate, pulling a makeshift cart loaded with tools and metal scraps. The perimeter guards raised their pulse rifles, more from habit than any real sense of threat. It had been months since the last crystal being attack. "State your business," the senior guard called out, his voice muffled by his filtration mask. The stranger looked up, revealing a weathered face marked by years of work near hot fires. "I'm a blacksmith," he said simply, "looking for a place to set up shop." The guards exchanged glances. In an age of molecular fabricators and automated manufacturing, blacksmiths were about as common as horse-drawn carriages on Earth. But something in the stranger's quiet confidence made them lower their weapons. "Got any papers?" the senior guard asked. "Lost them in the Tharsis outbreak," the smith replied, his voice carrying no trace of deception or anxiety. "Name's Marcus Chen. Just looking for honest work." The guards deliberated briefly before waving him through. New Eras was always in need of skilled craftsmen, even if their methods were considered outdated. Besides, anyone who could survive the Tharsis outbreak deserved at least a chance. Within days, Marcus had transformed an abandoned storage unit into a working forge. The colonists watched with mixed curiosity and amusement as he installed a traditional anvil and bellows alongside their modern equipment. Some laughed behind his back, calling him a relic of a bygone era. Others wondered why anyone would choose such primitive methods when fabricators could produce perfect items in minutes. But their laughter died the first time they saw him work. Marcus moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a man of his size, his hammer striking the glowing metal with precision that matched any machine. The items he produced, tools, implements, and basic machinery parts, possessed a quality that the fabricators couldn't replicate. There was something about his metalwork that felt alive, as if each piece carried a portion of his strength within it. Sarah Martinez, the colony's chief engineer, was the first to recognize that something was different about Marcus's creations. The mining tools he forged lasted longer, cut deeper, and never seemed to dull. When she brought him a broken drill bit that had shattered against one of Mars's crystal formations, he examined it with eyes that seemed to see beyond the metal's surface. "The crystal beings are getting bolder," he commented, surprising her. Few colonists spoke openly about the silicon-based life forms that emerged from Mars's deep caverns. "You've encountered them before?" Sarah asked, studying his face carefully. Marcus's hands never stopped working as he replied, "You could say that. They're not what everyone thinks they are." Before Sarah could press him further, the colony's alarm system blared to life. The sound they all dreaded, the high-pitched crystalline resonance that announced an attack by the native Martian life forms. The crystal beings emerged from the red soil like living shards of glass, their translucent bodies refracting the dim Martian sunlight into deadly laser-like beams. Colony guards rushed to their positions, charging their pulse rifles, but their energy weapons seemed to pass harmlessly through the crystalline entities. Marcus calmly walked to his forge, pulling out a sword that none of the colonists had seen him crafting. The blade seemed to shimmer with an inner light, its surface covered in microscopic patterns that defied conventional metallurgy. "Stay inside," he commanded, his voice carrying an authority that made even the veteran guards hesitate. The crystal beings converged on Marcus, perhaps sensing something different about him. As they launched their attack, he moved with impossible speed, the sword in his hands leaving trails of blue light in the air. Where the blade struck, the crystal beings shattered, something that no conventional weapon had ever accomplished. Sarah watched in amazement as Marcus systematically drove back the attack, his movements suggesting years of combat training that went far beyond what any simple blacksmith should possess. The remaining crystal beings retreated, disappearing into the Martian soil as quickly as they had emerged. In the aftermath, as colonists emerged from their shelters, Marcus returned to his forge as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But Sarah had seen enough. She accessed the colony's database, searching through Earth's military records for any mention of weapons effective against the crystal beings. What she found made her blood run cold. Project 4G, a classified initiative to create enhanced soldiers capable of manipulating matter at the molecular level. The project was supposedly shut down after its subjects began displaying unprecedented abilities to alter metallic structures. The final entry mentioned test subject MC-217, Marcus Chen, who had escaped during the Tharsis outbreak, taking with him secrets that could change the course of human civilization. Sarah looked through her window at the forge, where Marcus continued his work, hammering away at metal that seemed to bend to his will. The simple blacksmith was something far more complex, and she suspected that his arrival in New Era's colony was anything but random. As night fell over Mars, the crystal beings' bioluminescence could be seen pulsing in the distance, like stars fallen to the red planet's surface. In his forge, Marcus worked late into the night, preparing for a confrontation he had known would come since the day he chose Mars as his refuge. The real question wasn't whether the Earth military would eventually track him down, but whether humanity was ready for the truth about both him and the crystal beings he had spent years learning to fight. The hammer struck the anvil, each blow echoing across the colony like a countdown to revelations that would shake the foundations of human understanding. The war for Mars was about to begin, and Marcus Chen, the blacksmith who was far more than he seemed, would stand at its center. Sarah Martinez stood in her office, staring at the holographic display of Project Forge's classified files. The more she read, the more questions emerged. According to the records, Marcus Chen wasn't just a test subject. He was patient zero, the first successful fusion of human DNA with experimental nanomechanes designed to manipulate matter at its most fundamental level. The sound of hammering from the forge drew her attention. Even at this late hour, Marcus worked tirelessly. But now she understood why his creations possessed such unusual properties. He wasn't just shaping metal, he was changing its very structure. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The colony's deep scan sensors had detected increased crystalline activity in the surrounding caverns. The patterns were different this time, organized, almost deliberate. Sarah downloaded the classified files to her secure tablet and headed to the forge. She found Marcus examining a peculiar crystalline formation that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "They're not attacking randomly anymore, are they?" she asked, stepping into the warmth of the forge. Marcus didn't look up. "They never were. The crystal beings are trying to communicate." "With you specifically." Sarah placed her tablet on the workbench, Project Forge's documentation clearly visible on the screen. "Or with what you've become." The hammer paused mid-strike. Marcus set it down slowly, turning to face her. "How much did you find?" "Enough to know you're not just hiding from Earth's military. The nanites in your system. They're somehow connected to the crystal beings, aren't they?" Before Marcus could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. But this wasn't the usual seismic activity common to Mars. The vibrations carried a pattern, a rhythm that made the crystalline sample on Marcus's workbench resonate. "They're coming," he said, moving to a locked chest in the corner of his forge. "And this time, they're bringing something with them." The colony's alarms blared, but the sound was different. more urgent. Sarah rushed to the window. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. The crystal beings were emerging, but not in their usual scattered formations. They rose from the Martian soil in concentric circles, their bodies pulsing with coordinated light patterns. In the center of their formation, a larger crystalline structure emerged. Unlike the others, this one appeared ancient, its surface etched with patterns that reminded Sarah of circuit boards. Marcus opened the chest, revealing an array of weapons, unlike anything Sarah had seen. Each blade, each tool seemed to shimmer with the same inner light as his creations. Project Thor G wasn't trying to create super soldiers, he said, arming himself. They were trying to understand this. He held up his hand, and Sarah watched in amazement as the nanites in his bloodstream became visible beneath his skin, creating patterns that matched those on the ancient crystal structure. The crystal beings aren't native to Mars, Marcus continued. They're what's left of an ancient civilization that found a way to transcend physical form. The patterns in their crystalline structures, they're not just designs. They're data, memories, an entire history waiting to be decoded. And the nanites in your body, reverse-engineered from crystals found on Earth. Our planet wasn't just a neighboring world to Mars. The two worlds were connected, linked by a network of crystalline technology that we're only beginning to understand. The colony's defenders were mobilizing, but their weapons remained useless against the crystal beings. Marcus strapped the last of his specialized weapons to his back and headed for the door. "Wait," Sarah called out. "The classified files mentioned others like you. Failed experiments. What happened to them?" Marcus's expression darkened. They weren't failures. They understood too much too quickly. The crystal beings' memories, they can overwhelm an unprepared mind. I was lucky. I learned to control the flow of information, to balance the human and the crystalline. The others, they lost themselves in ancient memories that weren't their own. Another tremor shook the colony, stronger this time. The ancient crystal structure was now fully emerged, its surface coming alive with pulsing patterns that made Sarah's head spin just looking at them. "They're trying to access something," Marcus said, his voice urgent. "A network that's been dormant for millennia. If they succeed, what happens? Either we witness the rebirth of an ancient civilization, or we watch both worlds burn from the feedback." He handed her one of his specially crafted weapons. The military thought they could control this power, weaponize it. They never understood that the crystal beings aren't just alien life forms. They're guardians, waiting for humanity to be ready for the truth. Sarah gripped the weapon, feeling an unusual resonance from the metal. "And are we ready?" "We're about to find out." Marcus stepped out into the Martian night, his modified weapons glowing with an inner light that matched the pulsing of the crystal beings. The ancient structure began to emit a high-pitched tone that made every piece of crystal in the colony vibrate in response. Sarah watched as Marcus approached the formation, his body beginning to glow with the same crystalline energy that surrounded them. In the distance, she noticed something else: ships entering the atmosphere. Earth military vessels, no doubt drawn by the massive energy signatures. The colony was about to become a battleground between three forces: the crystal beings, Earth's military, and Marcus, a man caught between worlds, carrying within him the key to understanding humanity's true place in the cosmos. As the ships descended and the crystal beings advanced, Sarah realized that the simple life they had known in New Era's colony was over. The arrival of a mysterious blacksmith had set in motion events that would reshape humanity's understanding of not just Mars, but their own origins. Marcus raised his blade, its surface now completely alive with crystalline energy. The real question wasn't whether he could fight what was coming. It was whether humanity could handle the truth he had been preparing to reveal since the day he first merged with the ancient technology that now coursed through his veins. The Forge of Truth. The Earth military ships descended through Mars-thin atmosphere like predatory birds, their hulls gleaming in the dim sunlight. Colonel Diana Chen, Marcus's former handler at Project 4GA, stood on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the crystalline formation below. "Target the anomaly," she ordered. "Containment protocols are in effect." But before the ships could open fire, the ancient crystal structure pulsed with blinding intensity. Every piece of technology in the vicinity, including the military vessels' targeting systems, went dark. In that moment of chaos, Marcus made his move. His enhanced body glowing with crystalline energy, he placed his hand on the ancient structure. Immediately, patterns of light coursed through his veins, matching those on the crystal's surface. The nanites in his bloodstream had become a bridge between two worlds, two technologies, two histories. "Stop." Diana's voice boomed through external speakers. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "No," Marcus replied, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "You never understood. The crystal beings aren't weapons to be controlled. They're messengers." As if responding to his words, the crystal beings began to arrange themselves in complex geometric patterns. The ancient structure at their center projected images into the air, holographic records of a civilization that had existed on Mars millions of years ago. Sarah watched in awe as the story unfolded. The crystal beings were once like humans, flesh and blood creatures who had discovered a way to transcend physical form. They hadn't died out or abandoned Mars. They had evolved, becoming living repositories of knowledge and memory. Rising storm. The military ships launched their assault, energy weapons cutting through the Martian atmosphere. But Marcus had anticipated this. The weapons he'd forged in preparation weren't just tools. They were keys, designed to unlock the crystal being's defensive capabilities. Crystal shields materialized around the colony, deflecting the military's attacks. The ancient structure continued its revelation, showing how Earth and Mars had once been connected by a network of crystalline technology, a network that humanity's ancestors had helped build before a catastrophic event forced them to abandon it. Diana, realizing her weapons were useless, changed tactics. "Marcus," she called out, her voice softer now. "We can work together. Think of what we could achieve with this power under proper control." But Marcus wasn't listening. The connection between him and the crystal network was growing stronger. Through it, he could see the truth that Project 4G had never understood. The nanites weren't weapons of war, but tools of communication, designed to bridge the gap between human consciousness and crystalline memory. Sarah, still holding the weapon Marcus had given her, noticed something extraordinary. The metal was changing, responding to the crystalline energy that filled the air. All around the colony, Marcus's creations began to resonate with the ancient technology, forming a new kind of network. Part 5. The Final Forge. As dawn broke over Mars, three forces stood in perfect balance. The crystal beings, arranged in their complex patterns, the Earth military ships, hovering in attack formation, and the colonists, led by Sarah, holding Marcus's transformed weapons. Marcus stood at the center of it all, his body now a conduit for energies beyond human understanding. Through him, the crystal beings shared their final message, a warning and an invitation. "The network is awakening," he announced, his voice echoing with ancient knowledge. Earth and Mars were never meant to be separate. The crystal beings didn't retreat underground to hide. They were waiting, maintaining the last connections of a system that once united both worlds. Diana ordered her troops to stand down as the truth became undeniable. The crystalline technology wasn't a weapon to be feared, but a legacy to be reclaimed. The nanits in Marcus's blood weren't just enhancements, they were keys to humanity's forgotten heritage. Through the ancient structure, the crystal beings revealed their purpose. They were guardians, preserving the knowledge of two civilizations until humanity was ready to understand its true place in the solar system. Marcus hadn't been changed by Project 4G. He had been awakened, his consciousness expanded to bridge the gap between Earth's present and Mars's past. As the sun rose fully over the Martian landscape, the crystal beings began to shift, their forms becoming more fluid, more approachable. They weren't retreating this time. They were transforming, preparing to teach humanity how to access the crystalline network that had once connected two worlds. Sarah stepped forward, still holding Marcus's weapon, which had now become something else entirely, a key to understanding the crystal technology. "What happens now?" she asked. Marcus turned to face the assembled colonists and soldiers, his eyes reflecting the crystalline light that surrounded them. "Now," he said, "we rebuild. Not as Earth colonists on Mars, but as inheritors of both worlds' legacy. The crystal beings aren't our enemies. They're our teachers, waiting for us to remember who we really are." Diana ordered her ships to stand down permanently. Project 4G had sought to create weapons, but instead they had stumbled upon the key to humanity's next evolution. Marcus's role as a blacksmith hadn't been a disguise. It had been preparation, teaching him to understand the fundamental nature of matter before he could help humanity grasp its larger destiny. The ancient structure began to sink back into the Martian soil, but this time it left something behind. A network of crystalline nodes, connecting the colony to a vast web of information and energy that spread across both planets. The crystal beings dispersed, not to hide, but to begin their work as guides for humanity's rediscovery of its interplanetary heritage. Marcus returned to his forge, but it was different now. The simple workshop had become a gateway between worlds, where the traditional craft of metalworking merged with crystalline technology to forge tools for humanity's new journey. Sarah stood beside him as he worked, watching the metal and crystal merge under his transformed touch. They never laughed at the blacksmith, she realized. They just didn't understand what he was forging. Marcus smiled, his hands glowing with the same energy that now pulsed through the colony's crystalline network. "Sometimes," he said, "the oldest crafts are the best ways to shape the future." As night fell over Mars, the crystal being's light painted the sky in patterns that mirrored the ancient networks sleeping beneath both planets' surfaces. The blacksmith's secret had been revealed, but it was only the beginning of humanity's journey to reclaim its forgotten legacy among the stars.